Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creators Lounge podcast. I am your host, Ben Jaye. And we have a really cool episode that's about to happen right this minute. So this guest reached out to me via email. I'm not even sure why you did email. I want to hear about that later. But I checked my email account. I got this big email explaining, how he had found me, what he wanted to do for the show. And I was like, this dude is prepared. This sounds super cool. So I said yes. And then I started digging into everything he's done. And I was totally mind blown. I love his approach to life. I love the music he makes. I love his concepts. I love it all. So I'm so excited to talk to him person to person and hear about all the stuff behind the scenes. My man, give us the introduction. What is your name? Where are you from? What do you do?
All right. Well, first off, thanks for being blown away by my email. I'm told that I'm quite the wordsmith. My name's DREER. I also known as Hamish if you get to know me. I live in Victoria, Australia. And what was that final question? Sorry.
And what do you do?
What do? I'm a bass music DJ and producer. I've been DJing since I was 17, so that's coming up 6 years now, and I've been producing for about 3 or 4 years, so since 2017. I'm specialized in minimalistic, deep dubstep and left field bass, and that's kind of my shtick at the moment. And it's all done. Right. It's all dressed up in this really cool drab, atmospheric, and grainy aesthetic.
And we're going to get into that more a bit later on.
Cool.
You are doing the DREER project right now. It's been around for, I'm not sure, about a year, maybe a little bit more.
Since January.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
But you've actually, like you said, been doing music for a whole lot longer than just with the DREER project. So when do you consider your musical journey to have begun? What was that moment like? Were you always into music? Was there something that happened? But take us back in time, and where did this all start for you musically?
So where I live, dubstep isn't a thing. If you've, with your interview with Mansa, he's, a pretty good point of reference where not much people know what it is and you just happen to stumble into it. For me, it was stumbling into the Bangarang EP by Skrillex when I was in high school and just being sort of an avid fan for a long time. And then I think it would have been, once I saw videos of Funkcase on YouTube, just playing shows, I was like, I would love to do this as just a hobby and everything. And eventually I got more and more enamored with the with just the culture and just the practice of DJing that I was like, I want to do this for a career. Eventually I found out these people make their own music and I was thinking, holy crap, this is insane. Through high school, played a few gigs for my school, playing whenever I want and everything. And then sort of after high school, I studied a diploma in sound production, in audio production, and that was particularly with electronic music. So I had this sort of jump start in a bit of a formal thing, and I learned Ableton, and I've been using Ableton since I started producing. And I've just had this timeline in my head of I'm going to DJ for 3 years, and then on the 4th year I'm going to learn how to produce, and then just produce and DJ in tandem with each other and build a business. That was all under a alias that was called White Crow, and I made that up when I was 17, and I had to I didn't have to change it, but I knew it would be an issue because we have a tomato sauce brand down here called White Crow Tomato Sauce. I didn't want to get a cease and desist from a tomato sauce brand when I put out music.
That's hilarious.
That's the little extravagant story about it, but still,
we don't have to get into it, but I am curious where you came up with the name White Crow. And did you get it from the White Eagle?
I don't know. I kind of came up with it. I found out that albino ravens are a thing, and albino raven doesn't sound very catchy, so I just said White Crow.
And a bit.
Yeah, exactly. But since it's still a beautiful part of me. I've supported Marauder and I've supported Virtual Riot under the alias of White Crow. So. Yep. There's a lot of history with it, and sure. I don't regret it, and it led to what this is now.
Yeah, exactly. As I was researching this show, I did see a bit about the White Crow project, so I was curious about it. But yes. Anyway, I love that origin story. It's super cool. Something that viewers of the show will recognize is that what consistently happens is that people come on the show and say, I'm always like, what got you into this music? Where did it start? Right. And consistently, a lot of EDM artists all say Skrillex, specifically the Scary Monsters by Sprice EP. For the newer fans and people who are new to the EDM scene who don't understand about that time at all, What was it
Yeah.
about that EP, about Skrillex coming into the scene that was so special, that was so magical, that captured everyone's attention?
Well, at least like where I'm from, people actually knew him from his band days of being in bands. Like they used to listen to his what would you call it, like
The punk
sort of
rock
like
and everything.
hardcore band and rock and
Yeah, yeah,
everything. Yeah.
right.
So some of my friends knew him from that. He okay. So he has this Skrillex has this really incredible ability to be able to make stuff musical, but make it still club friendly and everything. Like it's very aggressive stuff, but to be able to make it something you can like listen to in your everyday and not get sick of it is sort of his shtick. Like one thing that I always really appreciate is how he does his phrasings in his songs. And it was just like that, and the fact that like he did things with native instruments massive that other producers just weren't doing, and having that mentor like within 12th Planet was, I think, just very pivotal for him.
Oh, yeah.
That, and he just brings this this humbleness that you don't really see very often.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. He had to become the poster boy for dubstep, sort of, and his personality was the perfect one for it.
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
humble, being approachable, being open about everything.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
I want to focus because, like, obviously for this interview, we're going to focus on the DREER project specifically.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot to talk about in relation to DREER, but I think a lot of the audience is not going to be familiar with you just yet. So go ahead and give us the introduction on DREER. What is the DREER project all about? What's the purpose of it?
So, think of DREER like how people pursue lo-fi. There's a lot of noise. There's lots of, everything is very high energy, and sometimes people just want a break, or they just want some downtime, or they just want something that's a bit more like embellishing of the style. So with that in mind, I was thinking, right. So everyone's going for all these really modern, really polished and metallic noises. I think I want to go against the grain and try something that's a bit more, not polished and a bit rough around the edges and is completely unorthodox. I mean, the thing you have to also keep in mind about DREER is DREER was in pre-production for a year, so the entirety of 2019 was me and my photographer, who I'll talk about probably later if we're going to get into the aesthetics of it. Me and my photographer, I sent him a PDF, which was like a brief of all of the inspirations I had. Like we had mood boards, we had words that we wanted to be synonymous with the brand. We wanted all sorts of things. If you ever, for some reason, have a conversation with him, he would spill the beans all about it. But DREER is literally just in a sentence, it's creepy but beautiful. I think is one of the best ways to encapsulate it.
That's awesome. I would definitely agree. I mean, from everything I know about the project, it's super cool. Though I love how much time and energy you've put into the aesthetics and the branding of it all, the marketing of it all. It's really quite phenomenal. But I am curious, like, what was it that made you want to go for the aesthetic that you chose? What were the influences that guided you, the inspirations that were making you, want to go for the aesthetic that you did, the creaky but beautiful kind of thing?
Okay. Well, I think one thing that's definitely been an influence on me is the nature I'm actually surrounded in. So where I live in a beach town, but if you drive about an hour and a half west, my grandparents have a house in the woods, like a cabin in the woods sort of thing. And my grandfather was sort of like important in regards to sort of like nature preservation and conservation in our area. So I think there's that sort of love for nature that kind of came into it, and wanting to be able to represent that through something like electronic music. I mean, if we're going to talk in terms of like, musicality, Midnight Tyrannosaurus, Funcase, and Dubloads and Bookus Finest are all like very, very important in terms of like where I want to be in standard as a producer. It's hard to sort of pick a specific thing. It was just a culmination of a lot of things that just happened into what DREER is now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it always is. I think it's never like one thing that inspires us. It's a bunch of things that come together and we kind of morph it into our own creation, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love that. Super cool. Something that you requested we talk about, and you've already been talking about it a little bit already. As far as like brands and direction and everything, mission statements. You really wanted to cover mission statements for the episode. I think people should be familiar with what mission statements are. If you want to kind of introduce what a mission statement is, that'd be fantastic. But I also want to know, why are they important? Why are mission statements important? And then later we can talk about what your mission statements are. But first of all, for the introduction, what is the mission statement and why is it important?
So you can think of a mission statement as the thing that anchors every single decision you make in your day. A really obvious one would be, you don't go to build a house without the blueprints of the house. You get your blueprints, you see what your marching orders for the day are before you even put a single nail into a piece of wood. Another one would be, America and how they have their constitution that keeps them all together, that keeps everything a bit homogenous amongst their values and everything. So that, in a nutshell, it's sort of, that thing that will keep you consistent through change. And exactly for that reason, that is why it's important, is that it will keep you grounded and it will keep you consistent in your actions and your motivations and your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, no matter what circumstances happened. If you want to extend it into music, it's very important to, because any business that's actually got these, grandiose ideas of what they want to do will write it down in a mission statement. They want to get the roles and goals they want outlined in it. And they will then think of, okay, how are we going to, be character-based? How are we going to, enact all of these in a very methodical way? Everything's in twos, it's first a creation stage, which is, in your head. And then there's doing it, which is where mission statements come in. And that's the first action you take when you want to get anything done.
Fantastic. I love the overview. I talk about it a lot on social media. I think that people should have, I usually talk about values and standards, but it's very similar to mission statements as well. I think it's important, whether it's an individual, whether it's a business, whether it's a music project. I think that mission statements are super important to keep us focused and disciplined. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you found that you always come back every few weeks to just, review them?
Yeah.
Like you never stick with the same one ever.
Yeah.
Like I've got my personal and professional over there. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Like I think that it can be scary for people to make a mission statement because they feel like they're defining their entire life in one sentence or 3 sentences. But I'm like, no, stuff can change over time. Like your standards and your values might change over time, and to get better, to improve, to readjust, with your experiences. So yeah, absolutely. That's a good point to make. For the DREER project, what were the mission statements that you specifically chose for the DREER project?
So I have my first professional and personal mission statements just over here on a wall that I look at every day. And I think with the DREER project, it's been, as I wrote it out, I've realized that it's going to be something that will move more into giving back to others instead of, a winner-take-all kind of thing. I think if I was to model myself professionally where I want to be, it would be like a Mr. Bill sort of model where he is very willing to give out information and teach and coach and mentor people, just very forthcoming about that. And, I think DREER is sort of one of those things where it's like, I want to facilitate as much creativity as I can within the people that follow me, because I know that will feed back into building me up to be a more creative person by proxy.
Fantastic, man. I love that. It's super important. And I think it's something that is getting talked about more, about being open, being supportive, being, encouraging to everyone around you. Whereas I think for a long time, a lot of people thought it was all about, I'm the most important, egotist, focus on myself kind of mentality for a lot of companies and also individuals. But these days we're seeing, that it's a better strategy to be, open and to be encouraging, to help each other. It's not just one winner. It's like everybody can win, not just one person.
Yeah, you've noticed that too, in the EDM, zeitgeist of all of the big people that turn out to be, kind of terrible human beings have just been weeded out this year.
Yeah, that's so true.
And it comes out that they try to step on people who aren't bigger than them. They have, them out. They're looking out for themselves, and the people that are still relevant are the ones that lift up people around them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the EDM scene is very rewarding of people who are team players, right? I think a lot of people have done features with someone that put them on, led them to more success, and And the
Yes.
people that I see succeeding, the ones who are open to collaboration, open to supporting a friend, open to giving someone a platform, once they've made it. I think the EDM is very rewarding in that sense.
Yes.
Real quick before we wrap up the mission statements, I wanted to ask you two things, because you did mention about, changing personal ones like every couple of weeks. How much has
Yes.
the DREER project changed mission statements as you've come along with the project?
Oh, that's interesting. How has it changed? I mean, it's so weird. I remember setting out when I started music, being like, okay, me when I do music is a different person, and me when I don't do music is another person. And I used to like dream about like being more like the guy that does the music, because he's more fun, he's more energetic, he's more outgoing. As I've gotten older, it actually turns out it's all, stop looking at these two people. It's actually all inside this bigger person, which is yourself. So I guess, if I can look positively on myself, I know that means I'm looking positively onto the art itself. So, I guess, in short, the DREER project has imposed this sense of self-worth that probably would be absent if I didn't have it.
That is beautiful, man. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
And then kind of in the same vein a little bit, because I think that something you mentioned just now is about how having those kind of mission statements helped you to eventually kind of merge the different parts of yourself into one human being. What kind of tips or advice would you give to individuals for making a mission statement for their own personal life? Would you have any guidance or any ideas they could use?
Okay, so people who are listening, if you could just humor me for a second, if you could just imagine you're at a funeral, right, with all your friends and family, all your coworkers, everyone from all your social, encounters and everything, your extracurricular things you do outside of your work. Everyone's there. We're at this funeral. You get the paper of like, what's today's roster. Turns out it's your funeral, and you've actually died 3 years from where you are today. And there's going to be 4 speakers. There's going to be a family member, there's going to be someone from your work, and there's going to be a friend, and there's going to be someone from one of your extracurricular hobbies. Now, what do you want all 4 of those people to say about you? Because when you answer that question, that's actually going to, help you make your mission statement. When people ask, what did he leave behind? You want them to say everything, So in that, you have to just think about, that metaphor at least sort of helped me with it, in that, what kind of energy do I want to leave behind? And I think what I want to leave behind is long-lasting knowledge that just gets passed down and evolves over time.
Oh man! Oh my gosh! Let's go!
So
you could see me smiling as he was saying that, because like I knew from the minute he started talking, I was like, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
That's my
it's so
idea.
accurate. It's so important. I hope that people actually do that. I've made some Instagram videos about that. Like, it's so true. Whenever we die, like the things that we did already, our interactions that we had, the actions that we took, the reactions that we gave, like all of those things are creating our legacy, right? We're cementing our identity with the things that we do, the way that we interact, the way that we react, and all of these things. And so if you do care about legacy, if you want to be remembered a certain way, like, that's a good question to ask yourself, because it can give you some guidelines to follow and some values that you can live by and really create your existence with. It's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
when life,
all right, man.
When life asks you what are you going to do, it's your responsibility to answer.
That's right, man. That's right.
Yeah.
So you've been with the DREER project for ever since January, like you said, and then longer because of preparation of
pre-production. Yeah.
Yep. So how has it been? Are you still comfortable with the project? Where are you at with the DREER project right now, mentally and emotionally?
I don't think I've seen so much creative success so far, ever. I've dabbled, and people have been like, "Oh, that's great," but even going into some Discord servers and getting feedback on tunes, people are just so blown away by how different it is. It blows me away. Like mentally, it's very it's very stimulating. It's very challenging in like every single good way I can think of. I don't know. I feel at home in this brand, and it's paid back tenfold. All of the thinking I've been doing and all the studying and everything, and it's that's a pretty quick open shut thing. But I feel at home in the DREER brand, and I have so many ideas of how it's going to evolve in the coming years.
Oh man, that's beautiful. I'm so glad to hear
Yeah.
that. Other people giving it obviously positive feedback. You feel comfortable with it yourself. That's fantastic to hear. It means the brand's succeeding. You know, it's doing exactly what you wanted to do. Before we did move forward to the next section of the interview, I did want to ask about the aesthetics. Let's jump into that right now. You have a
Okay.
partner who you mentioned already. Tell us a little bit more about
Yes.
him and how you met him.
No worries. Well, if I could just plug his Instagram, it is lawrence.burnt, Bernt. He is a photographer, a fashion photographer, design wizard. Him and I have been working together on this project since, again, like 2019. And I wanted to do sort of I think I started off with this sort of like Junji Ito style, domestic horror kind of vibe. And then we sort of were like, all right, well, let's sort of, let's expand on that. Let's see what can we really pull out of this. And we're like, okay, well, we'll do horror generally. Okay, what's, kind of horror like? Well, what about like macabre 20th century media and everything? So, okay, cool. So like old vintage grainy photography that kind of, hits this uncanny valley of you can kind of see the figure, but you can't make out the face or the shape of the body or something. And we're like, all right, cool. Well, that's great. How do we add to that? Well, all of these sounds seem very organic and wet. Why don't we do swamps and forests? And lo and behold, we've got, the town I live in is called Ocean Grove. And a grove is just another name. It's like a nicer name for a swamp.
Exactly.
But there's this beautiful lake called Lake Elizabeth that's, another, hour and a bit out. And it's this huge, 200-meter long lake with giant pillars of trees, sticking out of them and everything. It just feels so, I don't know, natural and correct to be able to just go, all right, yeah, perfect. We'll fuse this old 20th century, almost Gothic style of art, but infuse it with nature.
Oh man, that is incredible. I love how it came
And that's
together.
just that's just a short answer
Oh,
sort
exactly.
of thing.
That's just the overview of it. It doesn't even get into all the specifics and everything.
Yeah.
I love that you
Yeah.
referenced Junji Ito. The dude is a genius. I absolutely love
Yeah.
his work. Real quick,
I've got one of his adaptations of No Longer Human on my shelf there.
All right, super nice, super nice. So, one question about Lawrence. How did you meet him?
Lawrence is he's a photographer for all of the local base events here in Melbourne.
Okay, gotcha.
And
So you
I just met him through
doing live.
association. Yeah, through association of friends. Yeah.
Very good, very good. That's super cool. And then,
Yes.
as far as horror and everything, because that was a big element for the beginning of it. What attracted you to that horror kind of concept? Have you always been into horror and darker stuff, or was that something that just fit with the moment?
It's funny actually. I used to be the biggest wuss when it came to horror movies. I used to not watch them at all, and then I only kind of came into watching them in the last couple of years because I think the thing about horror music is how people that score horror have to actually do all of these really subtle tricks to unnerve you and to abuse the fact that your ears are very sensitive to stuff from 3 kilohertz up and 100 hertz down and everything. They can freak you out as long as they've got a good speaker system in front of you and there's no picture sort of thing.
Right.
So I guess there was that. There's also just it's exploring a machination of the mind that I don't think is explored very often. You can see Void is starting to explore that sort of satanic horror style. There's even this old tear out dubstep heavyweight Sadhu who's starting his own thing called occult dance music, which is sort of a bit more in the vein of gothic satanic stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to sort of explore it in a more, I guess, the eeriness of nature, I guess, is the thing that attracted me to it, and the fact that there's a type of narrative in horror, or at least a theme within horror films, that is the fear of nature, the fear of nature overtaking. So I guess that sort of attracted me towards it. That and just the overall aesthetic and vibe of horror films are quite interesting, and I guess that's just our caveman brain just saying it's it puts you on edge, it fills you with a bit of adrenaline, and then it's out by the end of the hour and a half.
Yeah.
So
No, dude, like I'm super into like horror and that kind of thing as well. Like you mentioned, it's such a fine art that gets overlooked. A lot of people would generalize and think that horror movies just about the chills and the thrills and everything, but
yeah,
no, there's actually a deeper level to it. Like you said, as far as music goes, different
mm,
frequencies, emotional responses,
yeah,
visual imaging that happens to the
yeah.
listener. So there's so
Just
many.
look at The Shining. You know, The
Yeah.
Shining is such a good example of it.
Oh yeah, for sure, exactly. There's these small tricks and things that you can do, whether
Mm,
it's with the movie or with the music, that make
yeah.
people feel a certain way, and I find that so intriguing and so exciting as
Yes.
well. Yeah, it's
Yes.
super awesome. Besides the incredible dedication to the aesthetics, the mission statements, the planning,
Mm,
all of that kind of stuff, you quite clearly from today's conversation already are really into self improvement as well. It's
yes.
been a big part of what you talk about on social media,
Mm,
and I'm curious because not a lot of people are into in the music scene at least the people in my
yeah.
music side of the scene are not super into self improvement, self development. For
Mm,
me, like I see them as like one and the same thing. Like you develop yourself and then
yes.
you improve your music and your marketing and all that kind of stuff because it's one and the same thing. But I think a lot of people haven't caught on to that yet, or just maybe it's not their thing.
Mm,
What is it
mm.
for you that got you into self improvement? When did that become important to you?
Well, it's funny. My mum says I've always been very emotionally conscious of things, but I think that's just her being a mother. But um,
Hey,
I guess
moms
like
can't lie,
one,
man. Moms can't
they
lie.
can't lie. True. They changed they changed your nappies. They know everything about
Yeah,
you.
they know everything.
Um, yeah. So I guess so. There's that sort of basis. I guess like one real point of reference was one of my first friends in the city of Melbourne. Um, Jared, who he runs, one of the base events in Melbourne. It's called Filth Friends. They've had all of the heavyweights down. They've had Marauder, Sudden Death, Virtual Riot. I'm just like looking at the posters behind my wall
Yeah.
because I got a few of them. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
And he's quite a spiritual man, and I think he got me onto the ideas of like first it was like stuff like Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. Introduced me to some Alan Watts and all that stuff, and I thought, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. There was a YouTuber who I also watch called Friendly Geordies, who is an Australian political commentator and comedian, who also, he boasts reading 300 self-help books in several years. By the time he was like 25 or something, he had read 300 self-help books, and he had distilled down this list of books that he recommends. And so, from there, I sort of, watched, self-development, like bite-sized 10-minute videos on YouTube, and eventually just started snowballing and snowballing to the point where I think I've bought my 14th or 15th self-development book. And I'm still getting some more sent in from my parent, which is kind of funny. So yeah, I guess like, it again, it was a couple things, but I think, there's a real sort of like, if you're going to get hypnotized by things, you might as well hypnotize yourself with the right things, I guess.
So well said.
Keep the same, positive thoughts circulating in your mind, because you can only think of like up to 12 things on a cycle at any given time of a day. So you might as well fill them up with good things, and just generally, having good company, I think, has also been just a really big contributor to that.
That's fantastic, man. Beautiful. I love the origin story there. I want to ask you about something real quick, just to share your thoughts on it, because it's something that's not talked about a lot, but I feel like a lot of super successful people do talk about it. We're obviously familiar like with the physical side of health. We're familiar with the mental side of health. People don't talk as much about the spiritual side of health. Do you think that like the spiritual side of health is an important thing that people should talk about more? Do you think it's optional? Where do you kind of stand on that kind of thing? Because it's a very under talked about kind of topic, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, one sort of insight I garnered from this book called Your Spiritual Self by Dr. Wayne Dyer is that because there's, your spiritual self and then there's your ego self, your ego is very, very, insidious in how it can, trick you into thinking, well, I seem fine. Everything's been working out for me so far. I'm not dead. So I'm going to keep, these patterns going. And to the point where, you might have, an example like Getter, who, had a mental breakdown and had to like cancel a tour or something, or, artists that just weren't fulfilled and died in their 20s, for example. So I think, I don't know why it's not talked about as much, even though music is such a, it gets, it bypasses here and goes straight to here, and your heart. but some people just aren't very spiritually in tune with themselves, or they are, but like not to a great enough depth that it can actually make long-lasting, substantial, difference. You can't think yourself out of a habit you're in, sort of thing. You need to really just like get in there, really just be honest with yourself, foster a witness within yourself, and just be honest about how you are spiritually. And I think that, just by acknowledging it already makes you a better person.
Wow, that's awesome stuff, man. It's super cool that we're talking about this right now, because I haven't really had this conversation with many people. But I absolutely agree with everything you're saying.
Yes.
I think one reason why it's not much of a conversation is because I think that a lot of people can confuse spirituality with religion, and to me they're very, very separate topics. They can be connected, but I think that spirituality exists beyond religion. And so like you're saying, I think that people do need to get in touch with their spiritual side. How do they think about life? How do they treat others? What's happening, like you said, in here, and that can be totally separate from religion, whether it's Buddhism or Islam or whatever it may be. I think that people need to do some spiritual self-searching. You mentioned Wayne Dyer. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones. Who have been your biggest influences in the self-development scene? What people have given you the best guidance and best insights?
For a great introductory for literally anyone is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is he's such a craft he's such a craftsman at getting to the crux of things in such a very holistic way. And like he gets he also just knows how to get through your brain all of these things logically, but then he just knows how to like hit your heart, and through words no less. Like I remember I finished Awaken the Giant Within, and I felt a bit choked up at the end, just because he says at the end of the book he has complete and utter faith in the people that read it, because the fact you finish that book is evidence for it. So Tony Robbins is great. I'm just looking at the book list at the moment. Brian Tracy is quite good. Brian Tracy, he's also got like some attitude with it. Cal Newport is good if you want a more sort of objective voice in your head about things like time management and collecting like career capital and all that stuff. And who else? Cardone, what's his name?
Grant Cardone.
Grant Cardone. The 10X rules are a good read as well. This is all stuff that's really good to like get yourself initially into. It really depends on the person and what style of self-development you're into. I'm just very much into that sort of style where they're quite methodical and objective, but they still have this heart to them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's interesting about like the self-improvement sphere, is that nearly everybody in the self-improvement sphere says more or less the same thing. The thing that's different that I've noticed is how they communicate it, what vocabulary they use, what's their body language, what's their tone. And so different people are going to connect with different people. Someone could watch David Goggins and be super inspired. Another person can watch David Goggins and be like, I never want to hear him again. Same for all other people as well, So,
Jordan Peterson's a good example of that too.
That's another really big one. He's very divisive on his audience, even though he says the same stuff as a lot of other people say. That's super cool. I think I know the answer to this next question already. What are your favorite places to get new insights, new knowledge from?
The books for sure.
Very vocal about that on Twitter.
yeah, for sure. Another thing too is just I go for morning and evening walks. Sometimes listening to podcasts, sometimes not. Really depends on sort of what, if I'm thinking about a problem I need to solve, or if I just need some inspiration or some fresh air. Obviously, in the current sort of COVID climate we're in at the moment, driving around isn't too much of a thing. Otherwise, I by now would have spent at least a couple more stays in the woods at my grandparents' second house. What else? I guess, just consuming art that isn't within your sphere can do that. So I've been really absorbing a lot of Basinski art, he's like really good at this sort of like, he's called the Nightmare Artist. And he's like sort of inspiration for a lot of like the metal aesthetic in these days. He was like a early 20th century photographer and artist. But what else? I watch a lot of video essays on literally anything. So like I watch a lot of like video essays on anime films I haven't seen, or on TV shows I haven't seen, or like the music theory. There's this really good page called Sideways. He does music theory for film sort of thing. So he breaks down like, the musicology of like The Matrix, for example, just all sorts of stuff. Watching movies, can really do it for me. I've written a few songs just in light of consuming that. Like I've got a tune out via Hellhound Audio, which was literally I watched The Witch and then I watched The Lighthouse, realized it was the same director, and I was like, oh well, I really like his style. I'm going to make a song that sort of encapsulates how I feel about those pieces of art. Watching entire playthroughs of video games on YouTube that are 6 to 8 hours long, because the thing about me is I don't have any video games on my computers. I've completely cut video games out of my life. It's not in my routine anymore.
Wow.
But if I do have some sort of urge, I just watch playthroughs on YouTube, and that satisfies me enough.
How interesting. Real quick, I want to push you on that. That was like a conscious choice you made, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I see. How much
Absolutely.
time, just for reference, how much time were you spending playing video games before? And then why did you decide to cut it out?
I mean, through my teens, I played it, almost every day. And then as I got older, I was getting more and more divorced from it. Started playing, games from my childhood more or less. And then, I don't know, it just sort of fell off. It's really funny, actually. My younger brother is he's got his bachelor in game design, and yet I've gone full cold turkey from it, which is kind of hilarious. But like we still both bond over that sort of thing, I like hearing, I like hearing, things about, every now and again I like to dip my toes into, what's going on in like the sphere of the gaming community, because I used to be into Turtle Biscuit a lot, who was, one of like the sort of pivotal video game reviewers and just personalities. But I don't know, just like on average, if I had to give you a number, like from 12 to 18, maybe like 20 hours a week or something, and then from 18 onwards it was maybe like 10 or 15, and it's just as soon as I got to like 21 it was pretty much out.
Wow.
It was pretty much gone.
How intriguing. It's interesting, but there is the certain habits or certain hobbies that kind of fall off for us. We're really into it later. We prioritize other stuff, and it's not that hard to let it go. But like you said, like some of it still stays in the heart, so you can still like have interest in it a little bit. One more thing, you talked before about taking long walks and listening to podcasts sometimes. I wanted to jump into that real quick. It's a little bit of like a tangent. Maybe it's a very specific thing. Whenever I was like in my early years of production, it was really hard for me to balance listening to music and making music, because I felt like if I listened to too much music, I was like being influenced too much into what I was making. So I had to make a conscious effort to not listen to very much music and spend a lot more time in producing music. That is not the case anymore. These days, I live alone in Seoul, and I don't really talk to many people. So I have music going on like 24/7. If I'm not teaching a class or calling my family, then I'm going to be listening to music, nonstop.
Excellent.
So I'm curious for you, where do you kind of stand in that conversation? Do you listen to music all the time? Do you like purposely make breaks where you don't listen to anything just to kind of reset your mind? How do you deal with all that kind of thing?
Well, I have my little precautions. I have my playlists of everything but EDM. I listen to a lot of Eden or Crywolf. I was raised on blues music, so B.B. King and Howling Wolf and Lightning Hopkins and all that. My dad's a blues musician, which is sort of the reason for that.
Super nice.
What else? I mean, if it's a very, if I've been listening to music, producing and like at loud volumes throughout the day, I'll actually, I'm quite conscious of, how my ears are. So sometimes I will just put the headphones down and I'll grab a book and I'll just read without any music at all.
Yep.
Again, like podcasts, sometimes it's just good to have some voices in the background, but a lot of the time I do have some sort of music playing in the background as well. Especially like through adolescence, I was playing it non-stop. Like as long as if I was in class, I'd have to like take it out. But as soon as I was out, back to listening. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Super interesting. Now I love all the various influences that you've had. That's something that you've talked about a lot today already. Is you take information, you take knowledge, you take inspiration from everywhere.
Yes.
It doesn't matter the genre, the form, or whatever. It's all inspiration for you. And that's super cool. In that same kind of vein, obviously you picked up so many valuable strategies from books and videos and just living your life. One of the ones you wanted to bring up and talk about was the win-win complex. Give us a quick introduction. Like, what does that mean? What are you talking about when you say that?
All right, so win-win, I mean, it comes from the business world. It's covered pretty extensively in 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Win-win is basically, I want what's best for both of us. Sometimes there's, win-win or no deal, where if we can't both benefit from this equally, we'll just table it until we come back to it. There's obviously your variations of like win, lose, win, lose, all that stuff. But win-win in this, I guess, sense is it's also a personal thing as well as a business thing. You know, you want to make sure that you're not undercutting yourself and you're not undercutting the person who you're with. So I guess that's the general overview in a nutshell. It's a pretty self-explanatory sort of concept.
Oh, yeah.
It's just one that gets lost and forgotten very easily or confused for, you know, win-lose or lose-win sort of thing.
Yeah, we touched on it briefly earlier in the beginning of the conversation, talking about how the EDM community rewards people who help each other.
Yes.
But what impact, though, has the win-win kind of mindset had on your life personally?
I mean, like I could say the aesthetics of DREER, for example. Lawrence, you know, I make sure he never gets undercut. I make sure that he is paid when he does work for me. And mind you, for me, because I'm such a close friend with him, he, you know, tries to sell himself short. And I try my best to push to like, but even still, you know, that builds a really like tight bond. And, you know, at the drop of a hat, he'll do anything for me, and vice versa sort of thing. We're both each other's, you know, biggest fans in that respect. Again, like you said, like the music industry is a very, you know, cooperative industry. It's a people industry, so you have to make sure you're good with people. And again, like, yeah, it punishes anyone that tries to, you know, undercut others, or even, you know, even more like trickily undercut yourself to benefit others, sort of thing. I know I've definitely taken the short end of sticks when it comes to, you know, gigs or like promoting stuff or doing a live stream for a page or something. And in the same vein, you know, I don't want to let, you know, a label that is pining for me to give them a tune, I don't want to leave them empty-handed. Or like if someone, you know, wants me to tell them about, you know, something that I did, like processing my drums or something, I don't want to just, you know, say, oh, I just did this. I actually would want to go into the depth of it so then they can actually understand the concept of it.
Right.
So I guess, like, you know, that comes into it. And of course, you know, DREER, I want to be a mentor, coach, and leader. You need to be able to, you know, let others influence you so you can influence them back.
Yep. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you let the win-win complex completely saturate your life then on every stage. That's beautiful. Well, it's important as well, because like it's not just a strategy. The win-win complex is a lifestyle. It's a morality choice, right? It's a code of ethics that you live by. So it's not like someone who's unethical is gonna like, you know, actually be win-win in every situation. Like it's gotta be a moral choice you're making to treat everybody equally, everybody fairly, and it's so important, especially in this era, because if you're not playing with a win-win mindset, you're gonna get exposed. You're gonna get called out.
Absolutely.
You know, you're gonna lose the respect that you want to gain. So that's a cool point. You also mentioned the abundance mindset. That is a huge mindset, super important.
Yes.
Everybody in the self-improvement community talks about it and knows how important it is. When did you first hear about the abundance mindset?
That's a good question. I reckon I would have heard it from Tony Robbins. I think Tony Robbins, or maybe a YouTube thing. But, you know, it ties so perfectly in with the win-win complex. I think once you have a win-win sort of complex, or at least you're conscious of trying to attain it, you'll find that, well, you know, have you met someone who's been in a scarcity complex before? They are the worst people to hang out with. They will stinge money off you. They will try, you know, at any cost, like, not to give away anything that they have, because they feel that they will lose it as soon as they do. And, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point, you know. With, you know, the abundance mindset, if you accept that, you know, something like, I don't know, we'll say something like money, just for example, you can, you know, if you can live with the fact that you know that you can make the money back, you will be, you know, it'll feel so much more like less weight off your shoulders if you can give it away just temporarily for this moment, and it'll come back. It's like that, what was it? It was like a Harvard study or something where children would be presented with, I think it was like a marshmallow or a jelly bean or something,
and they were told they could have two if they didn't touch it.
They could have two if they just resisted it. So I guess, like, that's the thing about, like, could be construed as an abundance mindset. You know, the kids thought, you know what, I'll get a marshmallow another time, you know, or whatever, and then sure enough, it came back to them doublefold, as opposed to the ones with the scarcity mindset and just went straight for the instant reward, the instant gratification, and couldn't discipline themselves to. Yeah, you know, just make sure that, you know, resist the quick temptation of being able to get gratification immediately, and you will see results further down the line. I could have flipped my brand over in a day, and just gone from white crow to DREER overnight. would like no build up, no anticipation, no nothing, but
Yeah.
I would have gotten it and I would have been emancipated from this White Crow thing. But I rode White Crow out for an entire year and planned it, and now, within month 3 of DREER, I got recognized by Infect,
Awesome.
who's like, one
That's
of the rhythm guys.
Yeah.
So,
Remarkable, man. Congratulations on that, by the way. But
Thank
it's
you.
super, super important, and it's also a skill you have to build. Like I think that right now humans are kind of in a default state where you want that instant gratification, and you're told it's okay to have that instant gratification. You have to build the muscle of resisting and holding out for the long term reward. You have to build the abundance mindset. It's not something that unfortunately, it's not something that comes naturally for a lot of people, because I think people go through so much difficulty in life and so much strife, and that just makes you, want to hold on to stuff, and not be giving and not being caring and everything. And you've used it in your daily life. You've used the win-win complex, et cetera, et cetera. You have so many different strategies and mental approaches that you use in your daily life. Is it hard for you to adapt these new strategies, or are you totally open, ready to just go for it and utilize it?
I think for me, I was able to, because I know that for some people, it's just so hard to kill those voices that are in your head that are telling you that you can't win, that, everything's against you. For me, I think I've been lucky that I was able to kill those monsters quite small, and they were quite manageable. I have a funny story about how when I did counseling, like I was counseled in high school. I had stage fright of all things as well, which is kind of hilarious. But came like halfway through, high school, my counselor found out that I was a DJ, and she goes, "Hey, we're doing like this mental health awareness lunch barbecue thing at your school. Do you want to play like a 30-minute set? We'll give you like, a little gift bag of like bits and pieces and everything." So, I guess like, it's easier for me to say that, yes, you can implement these things quite easily, but it really depends on the individual. But I think there's there's freedom in knowing what you're fighting, I think. So the first part of the battle, the commodity of kings is knowledge. If you can learn about the thing that you're feeling or that you're fighting, you'll already be halfway there to winning, and you'll feel free knowing that you have control over your mind. Your emotions aren't this rampant thing. They're a thing that you can very consciously control. It's a chemical reaction to something like your physiology, for example.
Yeah.
I think the thing that actually really cemented it for me, here's another little fun fact about me. I've done parkour and free running for about 4 or 5 years as well. I picked it up around the same time I started DJing.
Of
so
course.
The big takeaway
let's go
from
hand
that,
in hand. Come on.
yeah, the big takeaway from that sport though was overcoming fear in like the most literal physical way possible.
Yeah.
And it just like, it facilitates this really like, okay, like small increment, like build it up, visualize it, and you've done it, out in the real world before you know it.
Oh man, that's super powerful. I want to hear some of the parkour stories, but we'll get into that some other day. You said it's funny that you had stage fright, but I actually want to push back and say I think it's not funny. I think that makes total sense. I think that in life we're given the challenges and struggles that we have to put us closer to where we want to be. Like a DJ having a stage fright, it's like, oh, of course, because once he gets over the stage fright, he's the best DJ ever.
Yes.
I think that we're kind of given the problems that we experience in order to put us closer to where we want to be. It's not a barrier; it's an opportunity, right? But we think of it as a barrier. It's actually like an opportunity. In that same vein, because that's something that you overcame: the fear of failure, the fear of pain, the fear of stage fright, and all this kind of stuff that puts you closer to where you are, who you are. For a lot of music producers, like I mentioned already, a lot of them, I think, don't always understand the connection between self-improvement and their art and their success in life. What values or what virtues do you think are the most fundamental for a creator to have in order to improve their life and therefore their art that they create?
Okay. Objectivity. Objectivity isn't, like, this is in no particular order. Objectivity is quite good because it takes all of the emotion out of this thing that you've poured your heart and soul into. It's good to be able to do that, and it might be the thing that drives you the most, but it's actually really nice to be able to take that step back and objectively look at something and go, well, this was good, or well, no, this wasn't actually that good, but that's fine, which leads into the second one of forgiving yourself and just forgiveness in general, I think. even other people, if not to forgive them, but forgive them for your sake, so then at least you're emotionally emancipated from them. So objectiveness, forgiveness, I would say develop a passive optimism that's just going to be an IV drip throughout your entire career and life. That's going to do you. I could have thrown in the towel so many times learning how to produce, and I've got friends, who've struggled with it or still are struggling with it, and you help them along and everything, and until they have that realization about, what I'm doing is actually, I'm still following my passion. I would rather be struggling with something that I love than struggling with something I hate. I'm trying to think, what else? I feel like there was one more in there that I definitely would put in there, but those are the ones I can think of at the moment.
Sure. They're super important. They're super powerful.
Diligence. Sorry, diligence is the last one I would say. Yeah. It's funny when Ben DM'd me on Twitter this morning saying, "Hey, are you a night owl?" I actually lied because I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning.
I'm so sorry.
So no, it's fine.
Oh snap! We gotta wrap this up.
4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, go for my morning walk, come back at about 5:30, 6 a.m., do reading for 30 minutes to half an hour, have a shower, get back in, clock in, I don't know, anywhere between 2 to 6 to 8 hours of music-related work. Doesn't have to be producing all the time, obviously. That would be terrible for your ears, I feel like, if you were monitoring at pretty loud volumes. And then, at the end, go for an evening walk at 7 p.m. or something. Come back. If I feel like reading again, I'll keep reading, or just otherwise engage in some other wind down activity that isn't producing. And then I'm usually in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock or something like that. So having the diligence to be able to go through the motions and everything and be able to just be this well-oiled machine of a person, that will, I think, lead to great success with music. It's good to feel depressed or feel angry when you want to conceive the idea of the music, but you need clarity to be able to execute it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, guys! King of diligence right here.
King of diligence.
Dre, I'm so sorry, man. I had no idea. You could have. Oh my gosh! And yet your words are still. You have your words so well put together. All of the thoughts and ideas you're talking about are so coherent right now. I have massive respect for you even sitting down to do this.
It takes diligence to be able to, do a podcast at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
We're moving to the last chapter of the podcast, though. I want to look at the futurescape real quick as we wrap it up. You've laid a great foundation. You've already got a lot of accreditation and recognition in the scene with the DREER project. Where do you see the DREER project heading?
Well, it's interesting. I'm actually in the process of writing a 2-year business plan because as part of an EP competition, the artist demands that you write a 4-track EP with clear goals for the EP of theming and everything and how it looks. And then he wants you to write a 2-year business plan of your project. So I'm actually kind of in the throes of that at the moment.
Wow.
And right now, I think the future of DREER right now is, since it's so new still, building rapport and building a catalog, because, no one cares what you know until they know that you care, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I think if I'm able to, in the first year, be able to show you guys that I actually do, genuinely care about what you guys have to say and do, and I think everyone has something interesting to bring to the table, no matter what that is. I think that's, the first mission is to be able to let the others influence me. And then I guess the second year, if I had to, because I haven't started writing my second year yet, it would be to now that everyone's influenced me, I can finally give back to them and influence them back and enhance their life.
Oh man, that's incredible. I'd love to hear more about that and details later on, maybe in a private conversation. I want to ask you about time in terms of your visualization of success, and that you're talking about it right now already, about the 2-year plan. How do you deal with time in relation to your personal goals? Is it a big part of what you're thinking? Like, in 3 months' time, I will do this. In 6 months' time, I will do this. Or how do you deal with that? Yeah,
well, I mean, if you ask any of my friends, you'll probably hear from them that I'm quite a frugal man when it comes to time. I'm I've grown. All these books tell you that time is the one commodity you can't make back, and that you need to be able to use it. It's the thing that makes successful people successful, is being able to know, will this be a good investment in time? Will this not be a good investment in time? I'm 23 right now. I'm 24 in November. I'm not getting any younger. I need to make sure that what I'm doing is the right steps to take. And that includes being able to make the mistakes too, because that, you know, you haven't wasted your time until you've given up.
That's
I think
incredible.
is like, you know, the best way to say it, I guess.
Yeah. That's incredible, man. Incredible. Yeah. Well, I think you're doing super well as well. You know, you're very planned. You're very organized. And then the important part is that not just are you planned, you're also executing every day on these things. And you and me were talking before the recording started about how during the pandemic you've had a lot of time to put into the DREER project and your personal life as well. You've been super diligent. You've been very consistent with it. It's incredible to see the results and the mindset behind this all. What steps are you taking at this moment right now for the DREER project as the pandemic continues on? Like, we don't know when it's going to end, right? It could be here a year later, maybe 2 years later. Hopefully not, obviously. But that being the state of the world right now, what are you kind of thinking about doing, you know, in the foreseeable future as the pandemic, you know, goes on?
I see. Well, yeah, that is interesting because we actually recently just had our announcement in our state, in our country, about coming out of our second wave of that pandemic, which will be interesting. So if everyone's on good behavior, people will be able to see each other by November. But in terms of DREER, I mean, you know, like, you know, clearly there's the build up the catalog of music, distribute it to people that you know will be movers and shakers. In the last month, so in August, I think I wrote 4 songs in August, start to finish, mixed to mastered. And everything. Couple of them obviously were put with an EP that's been sent off an email to a label. I'm working on another one, obviously, so already got ideas for 2021 going. I just actually got hit up by a Melbourne EDM local who actually, she's invited me to play at a virtual festival. I can't disclose the details yet, but I do know that I'm playing in October. That's about all I can really say.
All right, we'll look forward to that. So I've got, of course,
got a gig coming up. So, you know, just I guess, you know, getting amongst it all in the new landscape, trying to find your footing in it. You know, I've had people in Discord calls go, "You really should just do feedback calls with people." Well, if they want it, I'll give it.
I'll give it. I'll be the supply.
absolutely. You know, awesome, it's just, you know, getting to see the wider scope of everything, I guess, and assessing and just making sure that what I do benefits other people, I guess, is the plan for the foreseeable future.
Incredible, man. But also, like, I think the other side is that you're also being very consistent with your output. Making music, you know, doing this podcast right now, and tweets and digital content. So good on you for that as well. What advice would you throw to other artists during the pandemic right now globally? What do you think they should be doing?
I think you should be just having moments of silence, just to think to yourself. I know that, like, you know, you need to be able to have, you know, those problem-solving thoughts. You need to be by yourself, and you need to also, I mean, like, given the state of social media in some aspects, it's a lens that will enhance things that just won't do you any good. I'm not saying be ignorant to it. I'm saying limit maybe your exposure to it, just so that you can then work on yourself and within your circle of influence. And just think about that for a sec as well. Maybe look up what a circle of influence is. Try to figure out, you know, what can I do in this moment right now that can make me feel better. It could be something as simple as changing how you breathe. Instead of breathing from up here, maybe breathe from like the bottom of your stomach and up and down and everything, and just try to center yourself a bit more. That can be, even that's like a win. That's one thing that will take you one step closer to where you need to be.
Fantastic. It's great advice for sure. I think so. We do have a few questions. Actually, I'm sorry. We'll do the question in just a moment. I wanted you to leave a message to the you of 1 year in the future, if you could. What would you say to the Hamish of 1 year in the future? What would you say to him?
All right. If you haven't got all of the metrics that you're claiming you have on your first year plan for your business plan, I might have to smack you.
A threat. A threat. This is the first time it's ever happened.
Look. I'll tell you what. I don't think if I keep staying the course I'm staying, I don't need to say anything to myself in the future, because I know that it's in his hands, and they're very capable hands.
Fantastic, man. Absolutely love that. All right, we have a few questions from the audience. We'll do. They're a bit animated, so don't expect anything too serious. But the first one we got is from the artist Akuma, a dear friend of mine. I'm sure you know her as well. She said, "Deep dub honky win."
Yes, deep dub honky 2021.
Okay, very good. And then
Yep.
Coyote, the creator Coyote
Yes.
said, do you use Vegemite as coffee creamer?
No, I'm one of those Australians that don't like Vegemite.
Okay, all right. Uh-huh.
And no, it's not used as coffee creamer at all. That would be disgusting. That would be the
It'd
worst
be
thing in the
horrible.
universe.
I can't even
Yes.
fathom that. A
Yeah.
question from a user named Little Boy said, can we see Charlie?
I think I know who exactly that is as well. There he is.
There he is, Charlie. There we go. Little
There he
boy,
is,
I hope
Charlie.
you're happy.
Yeah.
And the final question, you kind of answered it already. I don't know if you want to give a different spin on the answer, though. Azra Beats, a friend of mine, said, what got you into dubstep in the first place?
What got me into dubstep in the first place?
You already
Definitely,
mentioned the
yeah.
artist, so maybe the sound. You could describe what was the sound.
The
that
sound,
or
oh my
something. I'm
God.
not sure how you want to answer that, but
It's really funny. I remember when I did hear the Bangarang EP for the first time, I thought it was absolute garbage. I hated it when I first heard it. And then I just kept hearing it over and over again. I'm like, you know what? It's actually kind of cool. But it's the very aggressive, raw growls,
yeah.
I think, would be like, just to, be quick about it and not get too
Too
fanboyish about the
Yeah.
genre. Yeah.
All right, man. Fantastic. We always
Yeah.
have one last section on the show, and
Let's
that
go.
is the speed round. I'll ask a very quick question. You give a very quick response.
Yep.
All right, my man. Are you ready?
Go.
Now let's go. Here we go. First one. Favorite color.
Red.
Favorite food.
Yes.
Favorite day of the week.
All of them.
Favorite movie.
The Road to El Dorado by DreamWorks.
Favorite song at the moment.
Favorite song at the moment?
Yes.
Oh, the entirety of the Widow EP from Deep, Dark and Dangerous.
Nice. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure, there's this one Nightcore remix of Through the Fire and the Flames. And the guy didn't just speed it up, but he actually changed the guitar solos for actual synth. So he obviously transcribed the notes into MIDI, and it sounds fucking mad. And I
Dude,
don't
send
tell
that
anyone
to me
about
after
it.
the recording. I gotta hear that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I'll send it to you,
What
yeah.
countries do you want to visit?
I want to visit all of Northern Europe, England, Ireland, Japan eventually, but yeah, mostly Germany and the Netherlands and all of that stuff.
Fantastic. What languages do you speak?
English, and that's
and
it.
dubstep wops.
Yeah.
And name one person alive or dead that you want to have a conversation with.
Oh, I would love to have a conversation with Tony Robbins, I guess.
Okay, that'd be cool. And how do you
Yeah.
want people to think of you? Last question.
How do I want people to think of me? I want people to think of me as someone that they can model themselves after, not in an egotistical way, in a I'm trying to help you way. I hope that I can be some cog in your life that can actually help benefit you and bring you to new levels that you can't currently think of.
Woo! Let's go! All right, man. That is incredible. That's incredible. Hamish, this is easily one of the best podcast episodes I have ever recorded, if not the best. I love
Thank you so much.
everything we talked about. Thank you for letting me
Yep.
pick your brain apart. There's still
Absolutely.
more to uncover, so I got to keep in touch with you for sure. Have you
Yeah,
on
of
another
course.
episode. Is
Yeah,
there
it's-
anything that you wanted to say to the audience that you didn't get to say already?
I guess that if you're an artist, just remember that creativity is also not just an elusive creature. You can actually train your creativity through just diligently working, and just make sure if you have any questions, production, or you just want to chat or something, I implore your audience to hit me up and just say hi.
Absolutely, guys. His link's going to be in the description box below. Everything, Twitter,
Yep.
Instagram, Discord, whatever he wants to put, I'll put it down there. Oh my
Yep.
gosh, guys, thank you so much for watching the episode today. I hope you guys do listen to everything he talked about. He dropped some incredible wisdom bombs. Everything he said is stuff that you guys could take and apply in your life and see massive change and massive growth from. So go back and listen to the episode again because it's that important. But for all of you guys, again, if you need Hamish, if you need me, reach out. We are here 24/7, 365. Everybody, thank you for watching. Have an incredible night and take care.
See ya.